Obstacles and pitfalls. Hunting the eye means trying to overcome the only obstacle before awakening to the truth. But how many faces it has? The one which soon will betray itself as a great deposit of obstacles is the so-called mind, with its main qualities restlessness and dullness. The cardinal remedy has been mentioned: to develop an attitude of unconcerned witnessing. Watch the restless thoughts, and the rushing torrent will slow down. Recognize, watch your laziness, and it will sneak away. The method works, but actually it means to treat the symptoms, leaving the disease which seems to be the mind undisturbed. Have a closer look. Try to locate this opponent to the most important decision of your life, your search for the self. Where does the mind come in? Ramana Maharshi says, there is no entity by name mind. Because of the emergence of thoughts, we surmise something from which they start. That we term mind. When we probe to see what it is, there is nothing like it. After it has thus vanished, peace will be found to remain eternal. Then are thoughts, feelings, and will produced by the brain? No. Science dropped that hypothesis which it once held and declared the brain to be a sheer, receiving, and reacting organ. Western psychology talks of subconscious regions within the individual as the source of much material for the so-called mind. But there is also assumed a vast ocean of a collective consciousness, which contains an infinite mass of concepts and ideas, subtle urges and passions, holy and unholy, and which is ceaselessly sending out corresponding signals that can be caught by anybody who is just tuned in as a receiver. This hypothesis seems to be confirmed by the fact that important inventions and striking new ideas have turned up in different brains at the same time. Ancient Eastern tradition took notice of the seeming independence of thoughts, ideas, etc., from the thinking person and developed an intricate theory of their roots, latent past impressions, hidden tendencies, and suppressed desires, calling them vasanas. Since we have no direct access to the depths of the subconscious where the vasanas are stored, we can only treat the symptoms, as it were, the thoughts and pictures, concepts and ideas which rise into our consciousness. And it is enough when we treat them in the way already mentioned, watching them quietly as they arise and disappear on their own. Meditation without an object brings up more of them than the habitual waking state. Vasanas from a depth of unconsciousness which is not touched even by meditation will be settled by dreams. It seems to be the explicit purpose of the dream state to deal with inaccessible vasanas and render them harmless. We need not worry about them as obstacles to our sadhana. To treat their offsprings as and when they appear will do to make them ineffective. After all, they cling to the personal I only. When that disappears, in the search for the self, they too dissolve once and for all. Looking out for other obstacles, we meet another which can trouble us a lot: our changing moods. We are aware that they change much to our annoyance. Sometimes we are restless or inclined to flare up. At other times we feel dull or even depressed. And sometimes we seem to be the very embodiment of harmony, peace, and happiness itself. Of course, there always seems to be some reason for it. And this idea is wrong. For in respect to this change of mood, we are merely a biological phenomenon, an organism, simply reacting to some cosmic influence. The Western concept of creation goes along the line of origin, evolution, decline, and destruction, whereas Indian thinkers of yore did not allow a creation out of naught. Nothing remains always nothing. Something cannot come out of nothing. Thus they preferred the theory of an infinite cycle of an alternately manifest and unmanifest universe. Sattva, corresponding to light, peace and harmony. Rajas, communicating heat, movement, passion, and wrath. Tamas, which means dullness, ignorance, stagnation, and depression, are three gunas, qualities of nature itself, which are in perfect balance among each other during the age-long, unmanifested period of the dormant universe. Its manifestation into another period of activity starts by a disturbance in the balance of the three gunas and is kept in motion by them. They cause the rhythm in which the universe is swinging, and there is absolutely nothing which can withdraw from their influence. Beyond the gunas is only absolute consciousness, because it is beyond nature. We are not asking the Western reader to accept all and every Eastern theory about God, man, and the world uncritically merely because they are Eastern. We ask him, however, in this case to examine this concept of the three gunas applied to himself, and he will soon be convinced of its validity, at least as a working hypothesis. Don't all of us know morning awakenings when we are in a truly happy or miserable condition without finding a particular reason for it? And at other times aren't our poor presumptive reasons found limping behind? The insight into the true nature of our moods as the play of the gunas will be of great advantage in our sadhana, insofar as it undermines effectively our long-cherished feeling of individuality. Aren't joy and sorrow, happiness and misery, suffering and high elation the very stuff of our souls? Where is our individuality, if all this is superimposed on some quite impersonal changes, caused regularly by the rhythmic change in the balance of the three gunas? But how can we get control over this amazing mystery, which reveals itself suddenly as a cosmic power far beyond the reach of our poor personal eye? Again, there is nothing which can be done immediately against the working of the gunas on us. But we can renounce the desire to seek and find and even invent reasons for the changes in our conditions, bodily, mental, and spiritual. We can watch the coming and going of the gunas and each time just make the best out of them. Having once realized the true nature of your moods as being the result of the play of the gunas, you take them no more seriously than you take the rain or the wind. They are not yours, still less you. They will pass by. This is the way to become a gunatita, one beyond the gunas. The self does not know any obstacles. All of them are obstacles only to the sadhaka, the practicing personal I. And there are general rules to be applied to all of them alike. Learn that the body-mind combination is your instrument. You keep it functioning, but do not ask it about its standard, neither with respect to the body, mind, or spirit. It is indispensable as an instrument for your spiritual intentions, but absolutely uninteresting in any other respect. Don't try to attain something. Sadhana is meant to remove only. Deny reality to everything, including yourself. It is not you who realize the self. The self reveals only itself. To whom? To itself only. Don't fight against your I. Every resistance is strengthening the I, because the motive power behind resistance is will. Don't suppress either, because a suppressed thought, feeling, or intention is bound to rebound. Only watch yourself without reacting either positively or negatively. In becoming the observer, you are no longer the thinker. You are going to become first the witness, and thereafter pure witnessing, which is not any more you, but completely impersonal. Then you are practically unassailable by obstacles. Pitfalls are only a peculiar sort of obstacle, insofar as they usually come in disguise and in advanced stages when the alert awareness of the sadhaka tends to relax. The most harmless among them is the idea that though we are not responsible for all the misery in the world, famine, wars, suffering, we feel compelled to try to stop it. The problem often takes the shape of the question to the sage, how can the sage be happy in his realization in the face of the desolate conditions of the world? What is he going to do to alter it? The questioner never seems to think how many powerful saints and sages have walked this globe throughout the centuries without being able to help it. If there is a higher power behind the life of the individual, should it not also know what to do in the case of the world? Is it waiting for and depending on you or me for that purpose? Maybe suffering and misery are just the means to remind man that his destiny is higher than that of settling comfortably in this world as his home. A happy person is seldom keen to question his or her situation. Of course, everybody should stretch out a helping hand to everybody in need with whom he comes in contact, and that is just what all saints and sages have done, and every sadhaka will do when he is keen to remove his ego, I. If only everyone would try to care for poverty and misery in his immediate surroundings, all the misery of the world would have been removed long ago. Why is it not done? To be busy, theoretically, with the social reform of a country or the world is only too often the means to escape from the responsibility to reform oneself first. There's another rather harmless mistake which happens regularly to beginners. Many of them are blessed with various glimpses of the higher life which they have entered. These carry the stamp of a genuine change of consciousness. And of course the sadhaka is happy and convinced that he has made real progress. There is no harm in it, because he soon has to face the fact that his experience is fading away, never to return. When this happens again and again, he learns to understand these sparks as what they are, glimpses from another dimension which want to teach him to discriminate between the different dimensions, but which also lure him on in his spiritual endeavor. They only become a pitfall when he, by vanity or impatience, gets stuck in one of them, taking it for final realization. Then his further progress is blocked. The mark by which this pitfall is recognized is, I have realized. This I can only be a wrong I because it is not the I that realizes. The duty of the sadhaka is to watch himself ceaselessly. He has to know what is going on within himself. There is a serious risk in doing this only when he looks too much at others. When he does, his personal I at once makes comparisons, and the result will be, I am holier than thou. With this idea, he gives his personal I a strong chance to develop into a spiritual I, which is much worse than his original, quite ordinary I, strengthened by all his previous spiritual effort. The result is a spiritual pride. The worse, the more advanced the sadhaka has become, because his attainments serve only to confirm his right to be proud of his success. But even if he perceives the gentle voice from within, warning him against this trend going on in him and reminding him of the secret of real attainment, silent humility, and even if he is quite prepared to accept the warning, there is still the risk that the cunning ego now is concealing itself behind his pride and his humility. There is only one remedy against these and all other pitfalls on the path to realization: alert awareness, relentlessly focusing on the treacherous ego, I. Luckily, the sadhaka is not left alone in his secret struggle against himself on his lonesome journey towards his high destination. How could he ever reach it, were it not already within himself? And it never fails to send signals of warning when the traveler is nearing a pitfall or has even been caught by one due to inadvertence. He is on a journey like that in fairy tales, when the hero has to go through many adventures, to fight against many enemies and even demons, to win the princess at the end. The further he proceeds, the mightier the obstacles. The most cunning pitfall on the path of the sadhaka is the last one, hidden in realization itself. The first revelation of the self is temporary. Jnana, once revealed, needs time to steady itself. Ramana Maharshi. The danger is not in the sliding back. It is natural to most sadhakas and is met quite naturally by continuing one's practice faithfully, which in its turn will lead to further revelations of the self, until finally there is no sadhaka left, but the self only. If, on the other hand, the sadhaka tries to hold on to that first revelation, in spite of his inner guide warning him who is holding on, then the ego I slinks again in where the self is veiled again and distorts the revelation of the self into the cry of victory, I have realized. Blindfolded by the bliss of the final success. Whose success? He never stops to scrutinize his condition and thus never finds out the truth. That he became a yoga brashta, one who has fallen out of his yoga, his union. The new and definitive disguise of his ego, I, is the guru, and this last and most powerful pitfall never releases him, because he never recognizes that he is its victim. There are nowadays many whose guru pitfall caught them even much earlier on their path. Maya. Maya is that which makes us regard as non-existent the self, the reality, which is always and everywhere present and all-pervasive and self-luminous, and as existent, the individual soul, the world, and God, which have been conclusively proved to be non-existent at all times and places. The snake in the rope. In modern civilization, man is no longer at the center as man. He is brought up to be a useful tool serving the process of production. To further this purpose, his training is aimed at an intense development of his intellect. There would be nothing to object to in this process if the intellect would be kept within the limits of its own sphere, the realm of theoretical knowledge only so far as it is leading to practical application. That may include scientific thought, but it is a poor and even dangerous guide in question of the hidden truth of man, world, and God, which are to be discovered only by faculties far subtler than those of the biologically reacting mechanism of the brain. Still, the human mind has also tried to usurp this higher dimension for itself. The very systems of philosophy are the results. The dominating Hindu philosophy of today is the Advaita Vedanta, and Ramana Maharshi is considered the most prominent figure representing this philosophy. Advaita means not two, the one without a second. There is only one principle, Brahman, essence and substance of all and everything. Diversity is merely appearance. Brahman, as the ultimate nature of man, is called Atman, the self, merely for convenience sake. Atman is Brahman. The world too is Brahman. To see it as the world of diversity is Maya, illusion. The idea of Maya is the point where the antagonist of Advaita Vedanta attacked the system as showing inconsistency against its principle of Advaita, Maya being second to account for diversity, which cannot be included in the one. Ramana Maharshi supported Sri Shankara and the Advaita system. The Tantrics and others of the kind condemn Sri Shankara's philosophy as Maya path without understanding him aright. What does he say? He says, 1. Brahman is real. 2. The universe is a myth. 3. Brahman is the universe. He does not stop at the second statement, but continues to supplement it with the third. What does it signify? The universe is conceived to be apart from Brahman, and that perception is wrong. The antagonists point to his illustration of the snake in the rope. In dim light, one can think a coiled rope to be a snake. This is on conditioned superimposition. After the truth of the rope is known, the illusion of the snake is removed once and for all. But they should also take into account the conditioned superimposition, i.e., the water in the mirage. The mirage does not disappear, even after we know it to be a mirage. The vision is there, but the man does not run to it for water. Sri Sankara must be understood in the light of both these illustrations. The world is a myth. Even after knowing it, it continues to appear. It must be known to be Brahman and not a part. The antagonists continue, with the conditioned as well as the unconditioned illusions considered. The phenomenon of water in a mirage is purely illusory, because the water cannot be used for any purpose, whereas the phenomenon of the world is different, for it is purposeful. How then does the latter stand on a par with the former? A phenomenon cannot be a reality simply because it serves a purpose or purposes. Take a dream, for example. The dream creations are purposeful. They serve the dream purpose. The dream water quenches dream thirst. The dream creation, however, is contradicted in the two other states. What is not continuous cannot be real. If real, the thing must ever be real, and not real for a short time and unreal at other times. So it is with magical creations. They appear real and are yet illusory. Similarly, the universe cannot be real of itself, that is to say, apart from the underlying reality, and Maya is used to signify the manifestation of the reality. Thus, Maya is only reality. But these explanations do not make Ramana Maharshi a philosopher. His great experience was not a result of study of Advaita philosophy, but the basic event which enabled him to confirm that great intuition of yore. He simply states what he sees, and that is the same as Shankara and the ancient rishis had seen, and which everybody will see who follows his path up to the end. That behind the appearance of the forms is the true nature of the world as Brahman. However, all their explanation and deductions cannot prove their vision, as long as he who doubts cannot see what they see, and he cannot see it as long as both of them use different ways of perceiving. No logical, philosophical demonstration can prove what the realized one sees, that the self is not only his true nature but also that of the world, and he perceives it as distinctly as a fruit on the palm of his hand. That was the reason why Ramana Maharshi used to divert the conversation as soon as it was convenient when it had turned to Maya. Actually, the problem, Maya, is no problem at all, being no obstruction in the path. When Sukha, the son of the sage Vyasa, realized the self, he did not believe either himself or his father, who confirmed his achievement, because he felt that he had not yet solved the riddle of the world as Maya. Thus his father sent him to Janaka, the royal sage. King Janaka put him to several tests which the youthful Sukha passed in the calm and composed way of a real sage. Accordingly, King Janaka confirmed his self-realization. Sukha remonstrated, but there is still the problem of Maya. King Janaka smiled. Drop it. The same moment Sukha saw that the truth of the world was the same as his own truth. In reality, in 40 verses, verse 3, Ramana Maharshi answers the problem in a similar way. The world is real? No, it is a false appearance. The world is sentient? No, it is not. The world is happiness? No, it is not. What is the use of such disputes? That state is agreeable to all in which, ignoring the world, one knows oneself, abandoning both unity and duality, and the ego sense is gone. Realization of the self does not mean finding the solution to each and every intellectual problem, but leaving them behind. The self does not see any problem. It is always the restlessness of the mind that creates problems in order to have a reason to be busy in the attempt to solve them. On Gurus, Siddhis, and Sanyasa. It is the mind that creates questions and goes in search of answers. It takes some time until it realizes this fact and gives up. But meanwhile, it interferes continuously in the natural expansion of the seeker's spiritual dimension. Until then, question after question emerges, and Ramana Maharshi stood patiently, day by day, against the flood. A collection of his replies to stray questions is given in the last chapter. However, the 3 themes mentioned in the heading above may ask for a treatment in some detail. There is a widespread hunting for the guru, and a lot of so-called gurus make quite a good business out of the distorted ideas about the guru and his function that are prevalent everywhere. Who, then, is a guru? The Shastras say that one must serve a guru for 12 years for getting self-realization. What does the guru do? Does he hand it over to the disciple? Is not the self always realized? What does the common belief mean then? The man is always the self, and yet he does not know it. He confounds it with the non-self, viz. The body, etc. Such confusion is due to ignorance. If ignorance be wiped out, the confusion will cease to exist, and true knowledge will be unfolded. By remaining in contact with realized sages, the man will gradually lose the ignorance until its removal is complete. The eternal self is thus revealed. The disciple surrenders himself to the master. That means there is no vestige of individuality retained by the disciple. If the surrender is complete, all sense of individuality is lost, and there is thus no cause for misery. The eternal being is only happiness. That is revealed. Without understanding it aright, people think that the guru teaches the disciple something like Tattvamasi, and that the disciple realizes, I am Brahman. In their ignorance, they conceive of Brahman as something more huge and powerful than anything else. With a limited eye, the man is so stuck up and wild. What will be the case if the same eye grows up enormous? He will be enormously ignorant and foolish. This false I must perish. Its annihilation is the fruit of Guru Seva, the service to the Guru. Realization is eternal, and it is not newly brought about by the Guru. He helps in the removal of ignorance. That is all. The real Guru is one who has realized the self. But how can we recognize him? He does not talk about himself. He behaves exactly as everybody else. And if he does not, there is reason to be cautious. There is only one quality by which he is revealed in his silence as well as in his talk. If you are ready for him, he will meet you without any searching for him on your part. And only then can you be sure that he is the Guru for you. Meanwhile, you are not without guidance from within. The inner guidance sends signals, as it were, ceaselessly, a certain sentence in a book, a smile of an infant, the beauty of a flower or sunset, all of them can become the means for a sudden understanding. One of the minor enlightenments which adorn the path of the sincere seeker after truth. All of them could become his or her Guru. The famous ancient saint Dattatreya said of himself that he had 24 Gurus, including inanimate objects. Even the first quest after the meaning of life is already prompted by the inner, the real Guru. There is a beautiful experience of Moses preserved in the tradition of Islam. When he complained, "O Lord, where shall I seek to find thee?" He heard the answer, "Thou wouldst not seek me if thou wouldst not already have found me." Who is it that is in search for the Guru? The longing is certainly prompted by the self, as is indicated also in the answer to Moses' prayer. But it is the personal I that goes out hunting the Guru. It is not punishment when he has to suffer the disappointment of catching the wrong one, but an experience which will teach him the proper way to trust and wait. If you want by all means to have an outer Guru, you will get exactly the kind of Guru that corresponds to the stage of your development. That usually means a rather low type, because a Guru of a higher standard is of no use to a disciple of limited understanding. The receiver has to be tuned to the wavelength of the transmitter for receiving, and vice versa. Thus, even if there is a meeting with a realized soul, the Guru need not refuse the disciple, because the disciple will not even perceive the presence of greatness, since his inner senses are still clouded. He will be like the man who went in search of Chintamani, the celestial gem that fulfills every desire, who found it and threw it away when he saw a colorful pebble. Of the worst kind among the many Gurus nowadays are those who are deliberately exploiting those hunting for a Guru. Their method of catching the trustful ignorant is often a mystifying show of ceremonies, incantations, dark hints, and even threats of black magic powers, with references to tradition. Sri Ramana Maharshi says about these means, "The books say that there are so many kinds of initiations. They also say that the Guru makes some rites for him with fire, water, japa, mantras, etc., and calls such fantastic performances dikshas, initiations, as if the disciple becomes ripe only after such processes are gone through by the Guru. The most potent form of work is silence. However vast and emphatic the Shastras may be, they fail in their effect. The Guru is quiet, and peace prevails in all. This silence is more vast and more emphatic than all the Shastras put together. But when the fake Guru is clever enough, he may even feign this attitude also. Another type of self-styled guru may not only deceive the would-be disciple, but also himself. He might have some intellectual knowledge of the truth and be able to teach the same as far as this limited knowledge goes. The sincere seeker after truth will one day or other, by the silent grace of his inner guidance, recognize the limitation of the would-be guru and leave him, perhaps for another one, or perhaps he has ripened enough in the meantime so that he will now recognize the voice of the inner guru, the self, and accept it unreservedly. Or he might follow the way of Dattatreya and learn to see the guru in all and everything, which amounts to practically the same. Now there is the strange fact that Ramana Maharshi himself refused to be the guru of his devotees, or to be exactly never initiated any of them in the traditional way. Some of them are known to have left him, though they loved and worshipped him, because they thought themselves unable to proceed spiritually without an outer guru. How is this strange attitude of his to be understood? Did the sage shun the responsibility which the guru is expected to take over in respect to his devotee? According to tradition, the guru who accepts a disciple also takes over his karma, bad as it may be. No, Sri Ramana Maharshi was only being consistent. He lived what he taught, the realization of the one without a second. When there is only one Brahman, where is the place for guru and disciple? A guru presupposes a disciple a guru. They are invariably two. Can there be two selves, the one guiding the other? True guidance is possible only when the self of the guru and that of the disciple is one and the same self. The real function of the guru, higher and more efficient than his teachings, is his power of contact, removing the ignorance of the disciple by direct transmission. This is of course possible only when the guru has himself realized the truth. This power is so real that Ramana Maharshi always gave the greatest importance to satsanga, the contact with highly advanced souls, because their purity, wisdom, and compassion are contagious like health and peace. This is the actual danger of surrender to a wrong guru, that his cunning, his vanity, and selfishness are just as contagious. Even the experience of everyday life shows the danger of evil company, though it is usually taken as an evil example only. But even in that case, the bad influence goes deeper. It is immediately contagious like a disease. May the inner guru protect us. This mysterious land, lost in the sea, granting the gift of the supreme truth to those who find the path in its hidden depths, also still keeps many of the secrets of magic techniques and powers called siddhis. The number of seekers after these secrets will probably outnumber those who are in search after truth, though it is widely known that Ramana Maharshi did not appreciate such tendencies, usually connected with yoga sadhana. Now and again he was asked about the position of siddhis within the frame of the search for the self. Once he declared, "The self is the most intimate and eternal being, whereas the siddhis are foreign. The one requires effort to acquire, the other does not. The powers are sought by the mind, which must be kept alert, whereas the self is realized when the mind is destroyed. The powers manifest only when there is the ego. The self is beyond the ego and is realized after the ego is eliminated. Where is the use of occult powers for a self-realized being? Self-realization may be accompanied by occult powers, or it may not be. If the person has sought such powers before realization, he may get them after realization. There are others who have not sought such powers and have attempted only self-realization. They do not manifest them. Among the visitors of the sage was Mr. Evans Wentz, the well-known Tibetologist. He too asked for an explanation on the value of occult powers. Ramana Maharshi replied, "The occult powers are only in the mind. They are not natural to the self. That which is not natural but acquired cannot be permanent and is not worth striving for. They denote extended powers. A man is possessed of limited powers and is miserable. He wants to expand his powers so that he may be happy. But consider if it will be so. If with limited perception one is miserable, with extended perceptions the misery must increase proportionately. Occult powers will not bring happiness to anyone, but will make him all the more miserable. Moreover, what are these powers for? The would-be occultist desires to display the siddhi so that others may appreciate him. He seeks appreciation, and if it is not forthcoming, he will not be happy. He may even find another possessor of higher powers. That will cause jealousy and breed unhappiness. What is the real power? Is it to increase prosperity or bring about peace? That which results in peace is the highest perfection, siddhi. The root idea in Sri Ramana's attitude to the phenomenon of ESP or extrasensory perception, as siddhis nowadays are scientifically labeled, is easily discovered. ESP experience belongs to the personal eye. The teachings of the sage of Arunachala revolve around hunting the eye until it submits. To seek and attain siddhis means to strengthen it. That settles the matter once and for all. Sanyasa was in ancient India, the fourth and last of the ashramas, the stations of life. The first of them was represented by the boy, who was sent to live as a brahmachari with the guru, to serve him and be trained in the scriptures. The second stage was his life as a householder. After an early marriage in which he carried out his duty to those around him and made his contribution to the collective. When his sons were settled and his daughters married, he was free to retire. However, his was not the idea of retirement to a comfortable life of enjoying well-earned fruits of a life of work and trials. The third stage of the ashramas was a quiet life of renunciation in the woods, vanaprastha, in meditation and prayer, and longing for enlightenment. These first three periods conformed to custom and convention, but the last one, Sanyasa, the total renunciation, was expected to assert itself at its own time and under its own conditions. This fact was behind Ramana Maharshi's somewhat enigmatic reply to a question as to whether the questioner should embrace sannyasa. If you should, you would not have asked. The traditional idea about sannyasa is explained in Narada's sermon to Yudhishthira in Bhagavatam, Book 7. The sannyasi's whole endeavor should be directed towards the discovery of the true self, at the point of contact between deep sleep and the waking state. He should look upon both bondage and freedom, birth and death, as unreal. He should not read profane books nor live by any profession, nor indulge in polemics, nor take side in a partisan spirit, nor accept disciples, nor do much reading, which would divert his mind from his spiritual practice, nor make speeches, nor undertake any responsible work. After attaining enlightenment, he may continue to behave as before or alter his ways as will suit his convenience. To give no signs by which others can recognize his attainment he retains his usual mode of life or pursuit. Sri Ramana Maharshi never encouraged people who thought of assuming a formal sannyasa, though he hereby seemingly contradicted himself. When pointed out that he himself had cut all connections with his family life and home, he simply replied that it was a matter of karma. Discussing the subject, he saw the motivation. In most cases, it is escapism, due to disappointment with a weary and unsuccessful life. Almost as often, it is a matter of self-importance. Being in modest or even poor circumstances, you are nobody. As a sannyasi, you are somebody, at least in the eyes of some people. There might be a third motive with a minority, impatience. They are not satisfied with the slow rate of their spiritual progress. All three kinds of motivation, and all others as well, respond to the promptings of the ego I. Therefore, Ramana Maharshi gave the typical reply. Why do you think you are a householder? If you go out as a sannyasi, a similar thought that you are a sannyasi will haunt you. Whether you continue in the household or renounce it and go to the forest, your mind haunts you. The ego is the source of thoughts. If you renounce the world, it will only substitute the thought sannyasi for householder, and the environments of the forest for those of the household. But the mental obstacles are always there. They increase in new surroundings. There is no help in the change of the environment. The obstacle is the mind. It must be gotten over whether at home or in the forest. If you can do it in the forest, why not in the home? Therefore, why change the environment? Your efforts can be made even now in whatever environment you may be. The environment never abandons you according to your desire. Look at me. I left home. Look at yourselves. You have come here leaving the home environment. What do you find here? Is this different from what you left? As an answer to another question, he replied, Sanyasa is to renounce one's individuality. This is not the same as tonsure and ochre robes. A man may be a householder, yet if he does not think he is a householder, he is a sannyasi. On the contrary, a man may wear ochre robes and wander about, yet if he thinks he is a sannyasi, he is not that. To think of the sannyasa defeats its own purpose. Sanyasa is meant for one who is fit. It consists in renunciation, not of material objects, but of attachment to them. Sanyasa can be practiced by anyone, even at home. Only one must be fit for it. It is the sovereign wisdom of this mysterious land, lost in the sea in the 20th century just as it was millenniums ago, when it was expressed in Manu's law for sannyasins. He should not wish to die, nor hope to live, but wait the time appointed as a servant awaits his wages. He must not show anger to one who is angry. He must bless the man who curses him. He must not utter falsehood, rejoicing in the things of the spirit, calm, caring for nothing, abstaining from sensual pleasure, himself his only helper. He may live on in the world in the hope of eternal bliss. Thus, sannyasa is neither showy nor brilliant nor very attractive a path, but just the one on which truth is likely to meet the wanderer, provided he is a true sannyasi.